Builtin QoS Profiles. Let's discuss some of the background that inspired RTI to offer Builtin QoS Profiles. First, you must understand that out of the box, the documented default values for the QoS policies, they're not optimized to support any specific use case. It's incredibly difficult to choose one that all of our customers use because most of our customers have many different use cases that span a wide variety of operating conditions and system performance requirements. However, we can identify common use cases. So there's many use cases that are common across lots of customers, common use cases, common design or communication patterns that are shared, even though the actual systems might be quite different. And the last thing to note is that designing a QoS profile is not easy for new users of DDS. It's not just new users. I mean, even if you're an experienced user of DDS, designing QoS profiles can be quite complex. You might need a deeper understanding of the protocols that DDS uses. You need a good understanding of how QoSs interact with each other and modify each other's behavior. So this is something that it's not easy to do. So what RTI has offered to address those factors, or based on those factors, what RTI has decided to do is include what we call built-in QoS profiles and snippets. These are QoS profiles and snippets that have been predefined by RTI based on our experience. I mean, we are certainly the most experienced in our own product and in the DDS specification in general. And then how our product may be used by different customers for different use cases. So we're often consulted to help our customers craft QoS and modify QoS to support their requirements. We've taken that experience and then we created what are known as built-in QoS profiles and snippets, and we hope that our customers can use these built-in profiles and snippets as through inheritance or through composition, okay, as the basis for their own QoS profiles. So end user QoS profiles will start from a built-in QoS profile or be composed from built-in QoS snippets, and then further modified to address the actual requirement if they're required. I mean, not everyone has the same timing requirements, not everyone has the same data sizes, etc. So you may have to do a tweak here and there. There are over 40 built-in profiles and 30 built-in snippets that you can use. And we hope that these are a configuration for common use cases. And there are also profiles that we've provided so that you could be compatible with our other RTI products or other RTI versions, other versions of our product, as well as other DDS implementations. Now, an additional benefit of having these built-in profiles and snippets is that you can use these profiles and snippets to learn. You could look at a profile and look at the definition of a built-in profile or snippet and see what QoS policies are useful for a specific use case. And then hopefully this will let you, educate you on how to configure the capabilities and features of Connext DDS for a specific use case. What built-in QoS profiles are offered by Connext DDS? Well, first, we have what are known as baseline profiles. These baseline profiles are the documented defaults of a specific version of Connext DDS. Now, we try to limit changes to the default values of the QoS policies from release to release, from version to version. But sometimes we have to make changes. And so if you want to start with the documented default of a particular version of Connext DDS, you can start by using a baseline. So baseline 5.0.0, that is the name of the QoS profile that has that is configured to be the exact documented default values of Connext 5.0.0. And of course, we have 5.1, 5.2, and so on and so forth. If you use baseline by itself, the string baseline by itself to identify a profile, that is always the documented default of the version of Connext DDS that your application is actually being built against. We have other profiles that can serve as the base profiles or that you can inherit from that will provide a compatibility between your application and other DDS products and or other DDS vendors. Okay, so for example, we have Connext micro compatibility. If your application, if your Connext DDS application needs to talk to a Connext micro application, there are some QoSs that you should be modifying to allow that connection to happen. And then, so we have Connext micro compatibility, and then there's some specific Connext versions, Connext micro versions, like 2.4.9 or 2.4.3, that require slight tweaks to those values. There's also other DDS vendors. So if you are going to use Connext DDS in a multi-DDS implementation system, you may need to start with the other DDS vendor compatibility profile as your base. Now let's talk about QoS profiles that are related to end user requirements. One of the most common requirements of end users is reliability. How reliable is a connection? Is it TCP/IP level reliability? That's what we call strictly reliable or strict reliable. Is it just keeping the last n values reliable? That's keep last reliability. Or is it real-time and deterministic, which requires best effort reliability, which basically means turn off reliability. You may have connections that need to be strictly reliable but are high throughput. Or you may have strict reliable connections that need to be low latency. You may be trying to send large data like files or images. And when you do that, you may want to use a flow controller. A flow controller will meter out the data at a set rate, predefined rate, fast rate, a medium rate, or a slow rate. You may need durable data, as in you may need the data writer to provide previously published data to new applications that start up. These are all different factors of how reliable you want data delivery to be. That's why there's about 20 of these built-in QoS profiles related to reliability. It is what you call reliable isn't what other people call reliable, and even within a system, there's different levels and different types of reliability. I will say the most useful of this set of built-in QoS profiles are the first three. Generic strict reliability, generic keep last reliable, and generic best effort. It is common and it is suggested that if you have a reliable connection, if you need a reliable connection in your system, and most of you will have one or more, if not all of your connections need to be reliable, then you should derive your profile from one of these profiles. And the most important ones, the most useful ones are the generic strict reliable, the generic keep last reliable, and generic best effort. The rest of these profiles, I think they're mainly useful as education. Okay, for a particular use case, you can see by looking at the definition of these profiles, you'll be able to look at the definition of these built-in profiles, and you'll see what RTI experts, RTI system architects have, and through our experience, have found to be the most relevant QoS settings, the most relevant QoS policies and settings of those policies for a particular use case. So even though there may be 50 plus QoS policies and hundreds of settings, You don't need to touch every single one for a particular use case. But of course, if you don't know what you're trying to do, if you don't know Connext DDS that well, it's really hard to figure out which ones are the most important. So you can use the definitions of these built-in QoS profiles to learn about Connext DDS, like learn about DDS and which QoS policies are the most relevant for a particular use case. Moving on, we have built-in QoS policies that support very common communication patterns. You may have periodic data that you're sending. You may have streaming data that you're sending. You may be communicating events or alarms or system status. These are all different communication patterns, and then each communication pattern may require different settings or different QoS settings to support it. This set of pattern-based QoS profiles, again, can be used as the base class for QoS profiles that you create yourself to address your own requirements, or they could also just be used as education. So you look at the definition of these profiles, and based on what the QoS policies that these profiles actually set, understand which ones are most relevant for that particular type of communication pattern. If you are using RTI Connext DDS Secure, which is the version of RTI Connext DDS that supports the DDS security specification from OMG, then you might want to use a generic security built-in QoS profile as a base class from which you create your domain participant. This will make your domain participant to be a secure participant. And again, while this is useful as your base class, it's also useful to use as education to understand what you need to tweak in QoS to enable DDS security. No matter what, you will probably have to at least modify the location of the files that configure security, for example, like the identity certificates and the private keys that are used, as well as some security configuration files. Finally, the last thing in this kind of category is minimum memory footprint. This is not a QoS profile that we suggest that you ever use in a deployed system, but if you are trying to get an understanding of this, what is the minimum memory requirement of Connext DDS under a certain configuration, a certain usage that is, then you can start by deriving your participant's QoS profile from the generic minimum memory footprint QoS profile. Doing so will configure the QoS parameters to allocate the bare minimum needed to create the application. However, the resulting application may not run or perform the way that you need it. So it's really the minimum memory that allows you to create something but not necessarily use it in a useful way. Now let's take a look at Builtin QoS Snippets. When you're using Builtin QoS Snippets, you're going to compose your profile from one or more of these built-in snippets. This is differentiated as compared to using a built-in QoS profile. When you're using a built-in QoS profile, you can only use one of the 50 plus built-in profiles to help you create your own QoS profile. You can't use more than one. Inheritance is only single inheritance. You can only inherit your profile from one of the built-in QoS profiles. But when you're using built-in QoS snippets, you can use multiple of these snippets. And what are the categories of snippets that are provided? Well, one is to enable your QoS profile to be compatible with other products and other implementations of DDS. Another one is to enable specific Connext DDS features. So for example, monitoring. If you want to enable your application to be monitored with the RTI Monitor tool, then you could just include the snippet feature.monitoring.enable. If you want to enable topic query, you can just enable that by composing your QoS from the feature.topicquery.enable snippet. If you want to install a TCP transport plugin, unfortunately, it can be quite complicated, and you have to. There's multiple properties that you have to set in order to enable and install and enable a TCP transport plugin. With these snippets, this should really make that process or that composition, that definition, much easier. Let's say you want to add a flow controller to a data stream. Well, here you could just use a QoS snippet and compose your QoS policy by using one of these snippets. And these flow controllers are designed to send data out at the indicated data rates. So let's take a look at some other QoS snippets. These snippets, at least the first set of snippets, all related to reliability protocol here, you shouldn't use more than one, okay, of these. So if you use one, you wouldn't use another one. So for the reliability protocol, for the optimization reliability protocol, if you use keep last, you wouldn't use high rate. If you use large data, you wouldn't use keep all. They basically will fight each other if you try to use both of them at the same time. We have other optimization. For example, for large data, you might want to configure Connext CDS to dynamically allocate memory for large data instead of statically have very large buffers around. On the other hand, for transports, you may want to configure the transports to have large buffers, large socket buffers to hold data. And then we have some optimization for discovery. Compact participant means that we will send out smaller discovery packets for the participant. Fast endpoint is to try to increase the speed at which endpoint discovery happens. And then we have some other QoS policies to specifically specify a particular behavior. Do you want to turn on reliability, or do you want to turn off reliability that's reliable or best effort? Do you want history to be set to keep all or to keep last? Then we have, if you want to have asynchronous publishing, you could compose your application. Fundamentally, some of these QoS policies are very simple. Some of these QoS snippets are very simple. They only modify one parameter of a particular QoS policy, so you don't really need it. But if you don't know what QoS parameter to modify, then you could just use these QoS snippets to help build your final user QoS policy or QoS profile. So how do you use QoS profiles and QoS snippets, the built-in ones? Well, let's talk about profiles first. First, I'll say you really shouldn't use these built-in QoS policies directly, okay, in your creation. So you wouldn't create your participant or data reader or data writer with one of our built-in QoS policies directly. That's not good practice, because once you do that, you can't modify that value, right? We have it's hard-coded what those QoS values are, and if later on you want to modify that value, well, no, you can't. So instead, what we suggest is you derive your end user QoS profile from a built-in QoS profile, even if you have nothing that you want to change at the moment. If at the moment you don't say, well, I think I just want strict reliability, I don't know if I want to change anything, that's okay. I would still create your own reliable profile, derive it from the generic strict reliable profile, and use your reliable profile to create your object. Because later on, if you do need to make a tweak, a modification, you can. Okay, even though initially it's exactly the same, later on you're allowing yourself room to make changes. Okay, the QoS library name for built-in QoS policies is Builtin QoS lib or lib. That is the library in which all the built-in QoS policies are stored. So how to use built-in QoS snippets? Well, you use Builtin QoS Snippets to compose your end-user QoS profiles. And the syntax to do that is to use the base name tag, and the base name is actually a sequence of snippets. So you just add all the snippets that you want to use, each one as an element. And for this example, we're going to create our own reliable profile. And to do that, we'll use the snippet that turns on reliability. That's a QoS policy reliability reliable snippet. We'll use a snippet that sets the reliability to keep last. So that's going to be the optimization reliability protocol keep last snippet. And then we'll also use a flow controller. We'll have flow controller that's sending out data at 209 megabits per second. Now, the QoS library name, as in all the built-in snippets that were provided by RTI, will be stored in a library called Builtin QoS Snippets lib. Where is all this documented? Where is the documentation for Builtin QoS Profiles and Builtin QoS Snippets? Well, in the HTML documentation, the API documentation, there's a page, and here's the link to the page from our website. And it's also available in your Connext DDS installation. In your Connext DDS installation, under the resource XML directory, there will be two files. One's called baseline root documentation-only.xml, and the other one is built-in profiles documentation-only.xml. These two files basically are what those profiles look like if they were being created in XML, using the XML formatted way of defining QoS profiles and QoS snippets. However, neither of these two files are used. They're never loaded by RTI Connext DDS applications. So they only serve as documentation only. So if you want to look at, if you were writing your own versions of these QoS profiles, if you're writing your own versions or to modify your own version of the built-in QoS profiles, and you want to know what RTI did, these XML definitions of the QoS profiles, of the built-in QoS profiles and built-in snippets are available for you to look at. So, unfortunately, I will say that if you actually open one of these documentation-only files, it's a little bit difficult to understand because internally these files are building and composing things from each other, and so you're going to have to jump from file to file to place to place to place. A better way to see the actual QoS settings of a QoS profile or a snippet is using the RTI XML output utility. So this is a command line utility that can print out the QoS values of a QoS profile or of a snippet. And you could get this utility by going to this link in GitHub. We also have a tool called RTI System Designer. The RTI System Designer tool is a graphical interactive tool. You'll have to look at a different lesson to understand the RTI System Designer tool, but it's a very powerful tool that allows you to explore the definition of a QoS profile or a snippet. However, since it's graphical and it's interactive, it's really not easy to see all the values kind of at once on a single page. You're clicking multiple times as you're diving into a tree of QoS policies and their values and their parameters and their contained values and the contained parameters. Finally, I'd like to point you to the RTI community website where there's some best practices, more documentation, more education about how to use QoS profile inheritance, how to use QoS composition, and some guidance on that, as well as some examples of using built-in QoS profiles. Finally, in summary, built-in QoS snippets and profiles are being offered to be a foundation for you to build your own custom QoS profiles. The definition of built-in snippets and profiles are very useful for learning which QoS policies are useful for configuring specific behaviors and use cases. Often you're going to have to make some modifications, some adjustments, even though you're starting with a built-in snippet or a built-in QoS profile. And if you just want to learn which QoS profiles, which QoS policies are most relevant to a use case, then you could look at the snippet or profile that RTI offers for that use case and look at the definition of those snippets and profiles and see what QoS policies that they actually set and modify, and as a way to understand which policies are most relevant for that use case.